Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Tactical Baby Gear Podcast. In this episode, Alex and I discuss how much to let your kid lose, when to let them win, incentivizing them, 8th place trophies, participation trophies, and things of that nature. Very interesting episode, some funny childhood stories along the way. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. What up, homie?
What's going on?
I don't know. A ton of things are going on, actually, I should say. Not that I don't know. Half of them I don't know what's going on, but there's a lot of things going on. Some exciting stuff in the works. And my kids went back to school. That's exciting. You should have seen. So our kids went back to school last Monday, a week and a half ago. And Monday morning, it's like 6:15, which it's all summer. It's like, we haven't been getting up that early. It's like, why, who, what? 6:15 Monday morning, day one of school, and she is like up and at him, chipper, bouncing around the house, happy-go-lucky. I'm like, you are chipper this morning. The kids are going back to school. They're leaving the house. I'm like, oh my God. She was about to pull her hair out.
The summer felt a little long, but I mean...
And you're still dealing with it. Your kids aren't back in...
yeah, we're still dealing with it. So our daycare doesn't start till the week after Labor Day. I feel like we're in the north, you know? Like, come on. I don't know how granted, I guess in the north, if I'm not mistaken, I think they get out of school later. I mean, because schools around here get out in May, end of May. So it's like, yeah.
Right? Yeah. I don't remember. Dude, time is not something I'm good with. Something could happen 3 days ago, and I'd be like, a few months ago, and be like, bro, that was like Monday. I'll be like,
yesterday.
Oh, I have zero sense of time anymore.
For whatever reason, we've always gotten out earlier, but since we live in a touristy town, we always got out earlier to make way for, so the school buses weren't running.
I feel
everything
like we still go into June though.
Has that changed?
I'm pretty certain
I thought graduation around here was like end of May, But anyways,
regardless,
the point being
not
is like
on the same schedule as most places because of the tourism.
It's like early, but that's why I said like the last 3 weeks have just been brutal. Because my kid, I mean the twins, they're at that age where they kind of need a little bit more structure. It's like it's been a fun summer, but like when they need to get into routine, and it's just challenging. The three-nagers are challenging, but yeah. So we got one more
another week or two,
like a week and a half. She'll be pretty chipper on that day too, I imagine.
Yeah, for sure.
Because the littlest one's going too, so we're gonna have all three in a daycare.
Gonna do with all her free time?
Hey, live her best life. I hope. You know what I mean?
Let's hope so.
Because she deserves it. But yeah, so going back to school. So what's it like? The planning for you? What grades are your girls in now?
Kindergarten and 3rd grade. So this is Kendall's first year in like the big school, so she went out of the daycare and into the big school now. So day
more
one,
daycare payment.
Oh man, it's awesome. It's so much. It's great. Then that's like a liberating feeling. Like any parent that knows that transition from like getting out of daycare and going into school where you don't have to pay. It's like, man, I was paying how much money for daycare a month?
Exactly.
It's insane.
Maybe I can buy the organic chicken now.
No matter where you live,
you can get guacamole at Moe's, man. You can pay that extra $1 for that.
That's green. Let's not.
Oh,
you mean queso?
Oh, excuse me. Got a pay raise, no daycare.
Yeah. So kindergarten for Kendall, which is great, and she loves it, and she's so pumped, and she like kindergarten for Cameron because she was like new for her. It was new, like Kendall didn't pave the way for her. She didn't know anything about it. It was scary. She was like terrified of going. Cameron's pretty shy initially about anything anyways in the beginning, but since she had gone through it and Kendall had kind of seen how that went and kind of knew a little bit of the process and new teachers, and like she was super pumped, like could not wait to go. Right. So she was like, see you, Mom. I'm gone. I'm a big girl now. I'm going to kindergarten. So that's been really cool. And Brandy like kind of was like freaked out by it because by day 2, like day 1, they like let you walk the kids to the classroom and stuff like that. And by day 2, they're like, no, like you can leave them at the door. We got it from here. And she's like, but that's my baby, Yeah. And Kendall's like, see you, Mom. And then by day 3, and Brandy was still like, what? Does she know where to go? Like, of course, there's teachers escorting kids and stuff. Yeah. And then now they just both get out of the car at the front of the school, and Cameron walks Kendall inside, and then they go their separate ways. And it's crazy to me to think about. And I just, I was just realizing like she's Cameron's being in 3rd grade now, that like couple more years, she's going to be in middle school. Like, let that sink in. What?
And everything that comes along with that.
Oh, dude, I'm not ready for that stuff at all. There's a lot of things that you're just never ready for that you just kind of we talk about it every single time and you figure it out. But
well, now what about like just the planning of like the, you know, we're not running off to Walmart or Target doing all the back to school stuff because we don't need any supplies for us. But like,
dude.
Is there any kind of plan that you guys have to do or things that you think about or tips?
Nah, and the schools even like there's some. I'm trying to remember. I think there's like. They have a supplier somewhere they get supplies from too. So if you don't have the time or don't want to go do all the shopping and deal with the hustle and bustle of like getting the pencils and the notebooks, I'm trying to remember they'd send something home, but you can like pay the school like $20 and they supply it all. Like you don't even have to go out and like. Yeah. Of course, we went and bought whatever. Brandy can't stay out of Target, so she's like, "Ooh, another reason to go to Target. I have to go buy school supplies."
Are you so? For me, growing up, like I had like one, especially when I got into like middle school, it was like the LL Beam initials on the backpack, and I had that for like, I don't know, 10 years.
Right.
Your girls like transition new backpacks every year. They gotta get something new with fashion.
I feel like Cameron had the same backpack in first and second grade, if I remember right. She got a new backpack this year because Brandy was backpack shopping for Kendall and ended up getting them both LL Bean backpacks with their initials on it.
Get that little reflective tape. Anyone who's listening,
but these are like a smaller size. They're like our day pack mini versus the day pack.
Oh, really?
They're smaller than a typical backpack. And she was when they came in, she was like, I don't know if this is going to be big enough. But they're like just big enough.
Well, because those other ones were huge. I mean,
yeah.
I guess it's changed a little bit now, but like,
well, here's
when we were in schools, like here's 8 textbooks.
We don't have that.
45 pounds.
It's all on iPads and computers. Like they don't have textbooks. They don't even have lockers in some of these schools now because there's no textbooks. Like they just have their backpack with like a notebook in it and like a 3-ring binder for some things, but it's all digital.
That blows my mind. I'm glad we're saving trees, but man, they need to learn. Like,
well, they are going to.
I'm going to put some weights in my kid's backpack. Just this is what we used to do, son.
Yeah,
here's a rock.
I don't know. I mean, times change, right? You can't get stuck in the old ways. Things progress. It's just like our business and with marketing and all the other things. Like, we need to put ads on a billboard. Like, they
need to walk that mile from the school bus thing when mom forgets to pick you up with 45 pounds on your back.
100%. There's things that they need to be hardened by, right? Like we are living in a society of soft kids. Even adults. Mm-hmm. I mean, the 21-year-olds, there's a lot of soft 20. I was talking, who was I talking to?
Soft 40, 50-year-olds.
Oh, Tyler Merritt, when he was on from 9line, and he was talking about the millennial SEALs, the Navy SEALs that are like the younger generation. They're just soft. They're not the same type of people that like.
I still wouldn't want to encounter any of those guys.
Of course not. I mean, they're no joke, but they're not the hardened, like, real gangster dudes that were in their 40s now. It's just a different generation, and
I'd be intrigued by that from like but the drill instructor and all them, like what all those guys would have to say about it.
Yeah,
because obviously, I'm not going to speak to it one way or another because I'm not sitting there going through that training.
Right.
But I'd be intrigued if they're because so my wife taught at a university before we had all the kids, and she was saying that as the kids were coming up, it seemed like each year it just was progressively more babysitting as opposed to educating. So I'm curious, more even in like the military or in the police, for all the stuff. I'm curious, just across any industry, what that's transitioning to, or how that translates. I'd be really intrigued.
I don't know how. Like, I feel like you and I are very well. We're a different breed of most people. There's a small percentage of people that are wired the way that we're wired. And like a lot of people just don't have work ethic, or they complain about certain things, and they'd rather they want to do things, but they're at home playing video games instead. Like you and I are just purebred workaholics. We're just wired for that.
Video game I played.
But I think that was that parenting on our parenting, because both like my family, your parents, like we both have a lot of work ethic and family history. So was that something we picked up on as kids that's just like, well, you work for it, or are we just wired that way? That's a really interesting topic and conversation.
Because like, let's see, I was 13 when my dad put me on the job site. He's like, you're going to appreciate the value of $1. Here's a shovel. And I remember those summers I was 13 and I was moving bricks.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I did.
Construction type stuff, hard labor.
Yeah.
I mean, I was the same way. My first job was at the general store in Palmetto Dunes with Matt, who's our customer service guy. He and I were working together. stocking the coolers,
carrying bags of ice and all.
Well, dude, I bagged thousands of bags of ice with Matt. Matt can bag ice like no one I've ever met. And I learned
it was actually on his resume. It was like, what are your qualifications? Really? No.
Oh my God, that'd been amazing if he would have put that. He didn't
expert
no resume.
Ice bagger. I mean,
that dude can bag some ice. And we would run the cooler out of ice and have to wait for it to make more ice for us to keep bagging ice. Right. It was a big thing of ice too. But and in the summertime, because you know how it is, the summertime here, everyone's grabbing a bag of ice to go to the beach or to the pool or filling coolers. Humid. And I mean, crazy. But then we would also have to stock the shelves with all the stuff and everything in the cooler. But yeah, that was at like that 12, 13 years old. And then I got into the bike shop, and James, God bless him, like showed me how to work. Like that was for real work too. Like I've always had like high labor intensive jobs.
Now, did you do like once we were old enough, we transitioned into, like I was cutting the grass, I was washing the cars, like all the kind of traditional stuff around a house.
I did that stuff, like the chores, right? Yeah, oh yeah, 100%.
Now, did you get allowance?
Yeah, I did. I couldn't tell you right now off the top of my head like what that dollar amount might have been, or if it was based on what I did. I don't recall, but it was in line with what I was allowance. Doing. That's messed up.
It was like you're gonna mow the yard. Why? Well, because I told you to mow the yard. And then, but my dad would be the one who's like, he's edging or he's digging some ditch to do some plants. Like it wasn't like
I did some things, but and I don't.
It's like an older
recall things like that kind of came and went around our house. It wasn't like this set thing. It was just like, oh, you want to do something and it's $50 or whatever. Like, well, you did like all the landscaping for the whole summer, so like, sure, you know what I mean, or whatever.
Well, yeah, we, going to a movie or something, it was like, sure, I'll, like you were good all week. You listened to whatever we said, and like, yes, here's your $7 for the ticket. Now I'm sure they're much more expensive, but like that. So I wasn't ever like thinking like, well, I can't do something because I didn't do chores to get the $7 to go to the movies. It also helped that I never did like popcorn and soda, so it was just like $7. It wasn't like nowadays you go there like it's family like 20, of four, you're like, how did I spend $100 in the movies?
It's insane, dude.
I've never taken my kids to a movie. I'll be intrigued. Granted, we don't do screen time, so like the first time they go to a movie and it's like like 20-foot wide screen, it's gonna be blow their mind.
Yeah, it was hard. We had a hard time with that. My kids they don't sit still very long, so like 10 minutes into the movie, we were walking out. Because they were just like running up and down the aisle and they didn't care about the movie anymore. They just wanted to do something else. I was like, all right, well, that was a waste. So don't rush into it.
Trust me, I don't. I don't. If I'm going to go into a nice dark room, it's going to be my bed and I'm going to go to sleep. I'm not going to try to pay attention to where they are.
Yeah, no doubt. Now they enjoy it though. Like when my mom watches the kids and stuff, she'll take them to the movies or something. Yeah. So it's fun. They're at the ages now to enjoy that kind of stuff. But back to like kind of picking up on work ethic from parenting and things like that.
Yeah,
and I didn't ever do, like you had talked about the kind of the entrepreneurial side of what you did as a kid. And I guess I had that. I was just totally different. I never really thought about it until now. But like getting golf balls out of the ponds and selling them back to golfers and things like that. But like, I didn't do that kind of stuff. I didn't do the lemonade and all. But when I got to the point where I was knowledgeable and had enough skill set around cars in high school, it's really around 8th grade, I started working on cars for money then.
Right.
And that's where it started for me.
Yeah, let's see. For me, it was like my dad was always, he had his like job, and but then he was always like doing other
random
like
stuff,
businesses on things. Never really running. It might be like let's go invest in this and build some home as a like stuff more in his industry, because he's got the background in banking and what have you. But for me, I don't know. I guess I maybe picked up on that at a young age, but. I mean, we lived on a Hilton Head. We lived on golf courses. So, I'd literally stand there by like the marsh hole. I think it was like number like 14 or something, and like they'd hit it in there. I'd run and grab it, and they'd be like, "Oh, thanks for giving me the ball." I'm like, "Well, if you want it, it's $1, bro." And they'd be like, "What? I just hit it in there." I'm like, "You ain't going in there to get it, Yeah. So, living on golf courses, it was the lemonade stand, and back before the development got really big, there used to be like raspberry patches. We'd go collect raspberries and like try to like sell them door to door to people.
Nice.
Like I was always about turning about $1.
Yeah,
Like that's what I loved
I was
doing.
too
though.
shy then.
I was.
Like,
I just loved. I loved like the thrill of like, all right, how like, what am I going to do to I guess to make money? You know what I mean? And I don't think it was necessarily the money that drove me. It was just the idea of I'm going to do something
and get a result.
And like, yeah, it was like, you want to go play a video game? I'm like, no, I'm going to go hang out in the marsh collecting golf balls because I got a bucket of golf balls. And then, and I don't even know what I did with the money back then. Like, because I never bought stuff.
Right.
I put it under a mattress. You know, what probably happened is my dad probably put into some savings account, you know, back in the day. And I don't even know where that money is. But it was
remember that $500 he gave you to help you buy your first car? I stole it from you.
It was my $500. I get to learn. But
there's a lot of like things like that. I mean, I say that jokingly, but there's so many like. I think we're all guilty of it on some level. And we all have to kind of recognize it. But like giving your kids too much, creating that entitlement without realizing it or whatever, and trying to. It's so interesting. You never know.
And I've been thinking about that more now, just as you start to watch the kids even just interact with themselves, and you're like, okay, well, I could take this to the trash because he's done with his lollipop, right? And it's like, well, no, like you take it to the trash, and that transition. But then you start to get into high school, and you're like, well, if I'm in a position to buy him some used safe car because they're at that age now,
do I actually
buy it for them? I mean. Or do we, what sort of barter system do you put up in place because maybe they don't have the few $1,000 for the nice used Honda or whatever,
right?
And
there's ways to figure that out, right? And I think a good thing that Matt did, I remember when he got his first truck and he had to save up, he didn't buy it, and it was, it wasn't like this fancy, it was like an 89 Mazda pickup truck. It was amazing. We did all kinds of ridiculous stuff to it. But his dad, the deal was like, his dad said, listen, I'm not buying you a truck. I can't afford to buy your truck. You have to buy your own truck. But if you buy your truck, I will pay the car insurance. And like that was the trade-off.
Right.
So it's like, all right, cool.
But again, like when you're young, it's like, well, I want that toy. I want that thing, that widget. It's not until you get older that I think you really start to realize if you are constantly given anything, you have no sense of accomplishment, as in like,
well, they didn't earn it.
I didn't earn it, like, well, like now if I buy something, which I still don't buy things. So, but like, it's like, well, no, like I worked hard and I earned it. There's just a sense of, like you almost like, I know how to get out of my little bubble and go out into the world and deal with it because someone isn't just going to give it to me out in the real world. I have to go earn it. And so balancing that level of, well, yes, here's $7 to go to the movies. Because you're 12.
It's no big deal now. It translates later.
So how does it like where is that balance of like, well, yeah, here's $7, just go to the movies with your friends. You did some chores, you were a good kid that week, you did your home, all the things that you just want your kids to do. Where it's not like, well, I'm not gonna let you not have friends because all your friends are going to the movies because I'm not gonna give you $7 if I have $7 to give you. But then on like the bigger stuff of like, like buying your first home, if you move into that, it's like, I know people that got money to go buy their first home. You're like, are they going to appreciate that as much? Or whereas I'm like, no, I saved every penny and I didn't go to the bar and I didn't do this, that, and the other to be able to put some money down for my first home. And then I had to pay the mortgage. And then it was on me. And I was running my own business at the time, making nothing.
It's like when you have to earn it versus being handed.
It's it's an interesting balance as you think of it with parenting, because
especially in the early years where you're like, oh, just take this toy, shut up, you're driving me nuts. This has been all day of crying and fussing. Like, if this will shut you up and I have peace, awesome. But then that creates the next time.
Well, I've noticed that with because we don't do much screen time, but it's like they start to get like that witching hour and everything else. And it's like I could easily they've seen enough people with phones, and we try to not be on our phones around the kids. Just granted, I don't get on the phone much either, but it's like when they see that, all of a sudden it'll shut them up. You're like, oh my gosh, like they've just come home from work, and she's like, the kids they didn't nap, they're just wild. You could easily make them quiet and make our lives easier by turning on TV or giving them a phone or giving them an iPad, and you just kind of grin and bear it, but hope that merit badge comes through of like why I toughed it out, because they'll, in a year or two, like they'll be more apt to just go play or be outside or do something along those lines, as opposed to finding a crutch in yes, we got some peace and quiet, but now it's almost a bigger problem when they're 5, 6, 7, and they're like, well, I'm not going to do, I only want my phone. And then you're trying to be like, well, no, go outside and play. And then you have like a real sort of battle as opposed to, well, here's your option. You can cry and I'll just tune it out, or here's some Legos.
Yeah. There's so many different things to balance there. You never know what the right thing to do is. And then you look at it later down the road and you're like, it's all hindsight, right? And you're like, well,
again, like again, I said, like the merit badge.
I created this monster.
You know, like we were living, you know, in North Carolina, and you know, my family, her family's in South Carolina where we grew up, and it was like we had the kids, and I was like, all right, the twins. I was like, well, I don't get a merit badge for doing this by myself. If I'm one of the fortunate people to have such a network of family that wants to be involved and can help, like, why am I going to go do this on my own when I have free babysitters and that loving people that want to be involved in their life? But yet it's like, do I get the merit badge for toughing it out by being like, no, you're just going to sit there and cry, when I could easily take away whatever it is that you're crying about? And it's like, I've just defaulted to, well, I'm gonna try to beat it out of you now to make, hopefully, you know, a better person growing forward. So
yeah, it's tough.
It'll be interesting.
That's another thing on that's been on my mind. Well, so okay. This whole thought process was started recently in my head because Kendall came home from school, and I made an Instagram story about this, and she had earned a Fox Fund, right? So when you do things well at school or whatever, and you earn these Fox Funds, it's like still dollar bill basically that the teachers hand out for good behavior. And if you earn so many of them and you save them up, and they have a party like once a month, and you can use the Fox Funds to get ice cream or buy Frisbee or whatever, right? But then she said, and our teacher said, if our friends don't have Fox Funds, that we need to give them ours and share so that everybody has Fox Funds. And I'm like, that's dumb. You earned those Fox Funds. Sally didn't earn those Fox Funds. Why are you giving her your Fox Funds? You know what I mean? Like that.
Well, it leads into an interesting sort of conversation of like, now if you've earned it and you want to give Sally something because you like her people, and you like to help people, then by all means.
I didn't think it was...
It's in a socialist country.
Right.
For a reason.
I'm like, well, I earn money. That doesn't mean I have to give it to the next person that doesn't have enough money to pay their mortgage or whatever the case is. So that was kind of screwed up in my mind. But then that then brought me on to like kind of the entitlement aspect of it, but also like the 8th place trophies and participation trophies. Like, well, if they didn't earn the Fox Funds in class by doing the right thing, but they're going to get Fox Funds anyways, they're just going to get handed out. Then why are we even playing this game? Yeah. And making some kids earn it and other kids aren't, but everyone gets the same thing in the end. That was all screwed up.
Well, especially at that age.
Yeah.
We're not talking about 2 and 3 year olds.
No, they're 5. Yeah, you know, they know what the hell is going on. Yeah. And so I was like, nah, I don't like that. But what are you supposed to? You can go to the school and say, listen, Kendall's not participating in Fox Funds anymore, so don't give her any.
Yeah. Like, and then she's alienated with her friends because she's the only one that doesn't
starts to get all kind of screwy. And I'm like, oh man, how am I going to deal with this? And I haven't really circled back to it. I kind of want to ask her some more questions and dig a little deeper into it. But then it was like 8th place trophies. And I remember when Cameron, when she was like 3 or 4, was playing soccer first season. She wanted to play soccer. She tried. Actually, I think she played 2 seasons. And she didn't really love it. And she was more into gymnastics and whatever. So anyways, but soccer, it was like everyone kind of got that trophy. Granted, they were like 3 and 4 years old. But then that conversation of participation trophies and 8th place trophies and all that kind of stuff starts to come in. We're like, at some point, you have to encourage them to want to do it by giving them some reward. I get that. Like the kids,
especially at a young age.
At a young age, like you want them to come back and do it again, especially if they enjoyed it. Now you could argue the fact, well, if they didn't enjoy it, why incentivize them to come back if they're not going to enjoy it or whatever?
Because their attention span is
super short.
Super short because they're 5.
Right.
But,
so it's like at some point you kind of wean them off of this participation trophy thing, and then it's like, well, you have to actually earn it.
Mm-hmm.
But then if you're still getting, let's say, 8th place trophies for not trying as hard or not doing as good as the other kids did,
you also need to realize that like you practiced, you worked hard, and someone was better than you.
Right.
someone was
deserve
better
to
than
lose.
you. Yeah, like
so
you can keep practicing and whatever.
Yeah,
but
so there's
the nature
what
of the
I
beast.
guess what I'm getting at is like at some point you have to encourage them to keep going without discouraging them so much that they just don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
And where is that balance? You know what I mean? Where if like, well, you lost and you lost again because you're not good enough. You lost again. And then it's like this almost not depression, but like, I'm just not good enough.
Yeah.
And then they're like, then they don't want to try anything because they never. So it's like you have to give them a little taste of it to encourage. Like when you train a dog, like bite training, for example, when we were doing bite training with Hans, like you have to get him to take a whole mouthful of the sleeve before you let him have it, right? So if he like nips at it with his front teeth, he can't. He's not getting the sleeve. You're not gonna let him pull off your arm. He's gonna take it. He didn't win. But the first time he grabs a full mouthful and gets like all the way to the back of his jaw, you let go of the handle inside. You let him take the sleeve. He won. He won that round because he got a whole bite full. He didn't really rip it off your arm. He didn't take it, but you have to encourage that like, okay, now let's do a little more. Okay, now you got a whole bite. Let's fight with it for a minute. Then you can have it. And it's like little bits of win to encourage them to keep doing more and more and more. But at what point do you be like, well, you suck. You just lost. You got to do better. You know, so that's a balance I'm having to kind of find. And I think we're going to start to encounter with Cameron's gymnastics a little bit because even in the first year of competitions, they were giving trophies out to like 10th place or something. Now, she never ended up in 10th place. She was always at the top 5 or whatever and won a few things and first and second place, things like that. So it was cool. But as she progresses and gets into higher level of gymnastics with other very talented kids, I anticipate that she's not going to win as much and she might get slightly discouraged. And we're going to have to encourage her to, well, that's why you got to practice more. That's why we put it all in practice and da-da-da-da. So it's going to be interesting.
Oh, yeah. I'm not ready for all this stuff.
I'm not ready for it because I don't want her leaving a competition crying. But I also know that's good. Like just because it's like the inner dad for your daughter, you're like, I hate seeing my daughter cry.
In general,
that's like and it's not like crying because she's just being a punk brat kid, but she's like this disappointed, I'm not good enough crying that you can't really cater to because it creates soft kids, and then that translates, and then it's just all downhill from there. They got to lose. Losing makes you better.
It does.
Quote
or
that.
You know, it also, you know, I think of the like some of the Gary Vee stuff that we've listened to as it relates to like, you know, at what point you're like, well, I'm 5'6", I'm not playing basketball. You don't want to discourage a kid who wants to maybe play basketball, but at some point you realize you're not going pro.
Yeah.
What you might be good at is you might be an excellent writer. You
right.
know what I mean?
Well, it's recognizing your kids' true abilities or their natural abilities or what they want to do.
So from a parenting standpoint, would you say that as you start to be involved with your kids' life and you see what they're good at and what they're not, don't discourage them if they want to keep playing basketball for sure, but you're also like, if they lose in a basketball game just because now you're in high school and the kids that shot up to 6'2" and your kid didn't, you're like, they're just naturally more gifted in the height department or, you know, whatever. But it's like, you know, is that where you start to like kind of piece into like, but like,
you should probably branch out to some other stuff.
Yeah, well, you're an amazing writer, son or daughter or whatever, right? I'm just I'm intrigued by that kind of knowledge.
Things like that will play themselves out. Eventually, like, you're not going to get the scholarship, and then you don't get drafted, and you just weren't good enough.
But at the same token, like...
But you don't want him to, like...
Kind of the Gary Vee thing, because apparently he loves basketball, so it was like... But he continues to play, right? So it's like, how do you balance it? Like, hey, look, you're not going pro. There's things called hobbies. Do it because you love it, and accept that you're doing it just for the love of the sport or activity. But, you know, every young kid who's into sports is like, you know, you see that I want to play in the Olympics.
Right. I'm going to be a professional baseball player or whatever. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen, I think I'm very, very blessed in the fact that anything I ever tried, I always put 110% into everything I do. And my parents recognize that. So they always supported everything I ever did. Even if, like, when I was rollerblading, when I was 13 and I was really good at it and had people sponsoring me. I
almost killed myself
doing things like that. But like I was going to be a professional rollerblader. I was going to be a professional skater. I was going to be
X Games back in
that was going to be me.
Yeah.
That was me. And I was really good at it. My parents would they would take me to Florida and they take me to the skate parks and they'd go all over the place. And I had people sending me rollerblade wheels and knee pads. And like, I had these little sponsorship deals, which was a huge deal at the time. Yeah. And, but they always supported it, even though they knew like this kid is not going to be a professional skater. Like that is not going to play out. But they didn't know, because at the time that was like the Tony Hawks and like, dang, these people are making it. They're like for real. But how long does that last? So, and I'm sure they knew, but they were like, well, it's good for him to practice and get beat up and try and fall and get back up. Yeah. And it's teaching me a behavior of like, well, if you get back up again, it's the same reason I'm not going to get off the skateboard even after I broke my leg. Like, it's not the first time it's happened to me. You know what I mean? And then when I transitioned from rollerblading to riding bikes and I was all in on that, they supported it. Oh, you want to go to the BMX track? Okay, I'll take you. We'll go to Savannah, and that'll be our weekend activity. And we'll let Beav ride bikes. Travis was a professional shooter. Like he went to a special high school to be able to shoot guns in school. He went to the Heritage Academy. You know, like they always supported everything because we always went all in on it. Yeah, they weren't like, all right, well, this is short lived. Like I'm not going to waste my time and energy. And then that transitioned when I got old enough out of bikes.
Now, to that point, I mean, do you know if there was any thing where you said you were interested in something? They're like, sure, we'll support you. And then once you like a week later, when you started wavering, if you would, they were like, did they just put an end to it? And like, no, but if you're going to commit to something, you're committing to it, or
no,
like to almost set the tone. Or,
I always like got really good at something, and here's my problem: once I kind of like conquer that thing, I kind of get bored with it and move on to something else. Like and it's not like I've always been like the world's greatest at this one thing. I just feel like I've maxed out my ability with that, and I find a new interest. Like my attention span is like 5 years. You know what I mean? Like after that, like I need something new. I need to start over with something. I need a new challenge. I've gotten really good at this, and now it's just like incremental growth at this point on like how good I can get. I want to start back at the bottom. And I see that even still today, like with different things, but they've always supported it. And I went from rollerblade, actually before rollerblading, it was drums. I've been playing the drums since I was in like third grade. Since I was like 5 years old, I got my first set of drums. And I went all in on that. Drum lessons for like 12 or 15 years with your neighbor, Jeff Franklin, who's amazing. And like that, I did that even till I left for college. I was taking drum lessons. And I was in all the bands, and the jazz band and concert band and marching. I was in marching band when I was in the high school marching band when I was in middle school. Like I just went all in. So they always supported it. Because I have a very distinct memory. You're turning 15 and you want a new drum set. That's a lot of money for a birthday present, but you are like killing it. Like we'll get that. We'll support that. You know what I mean? And those are the same drums I still have today.
Because I got a vivid memory. So when I was younger, my brother signed up to play soccer, and so we were going to that, and I was like, well, I want to play soccer too. And I played like the one thing, and I was like, no, I'm not like into this anymore. My dad, I think it was a test to this day. He was like, all right, well, we can go to the soccer game, or we can do something else you want. What do you want to do? I was like, I want to go bowling. I was like, all right, let's go bowling. So we went bowling. The next like day or two, when it was like the soccer game, I was like, oh, we're going to the soccer game? He was like, no, you made your choice. You left the field. You don't like this. Yeah. Like you made a decision. You have to wait till the next season if you want to play again. And like ever since I was like, so it's like you can't commit to something and then bail out and then expect to get it again. Yeah. So he completely played me.
And then he made you eat your own.
Maybe eat it, because it was just like, oh, you want to go do something more fun in your mind? You think is more fun? Let's go.
Cool. Let's play this out.
I think we should stay here and do this. But if that's what you want to do, you're going to make a choice. And I made a choice, and then I had to live with it.
Yep.
So I was like, other than then I was like, all right, if I'm doing something, we're like, oh, Dad, all right, I need to commit to this.
Committed to it.
I'm trying to think of how old I was when I had that. It was probably, I don't know.
But you went on to play soccer after that, and you did very well. And
I did.
Were good at that.
But yeah. Well, then I knew. I was like, I guess if I'm telling Dad I'm playing soccer,
I'm playing soccer.
And then that was just it. Even with baseball, I was like, well, I don't feel like going to practice today. I was like, tough. Because guess what? If you don't want to go to practice, then you're not going to go to the game.
Right.
Like you don't get to, if you don't do the hard stuff, you don't get to do the fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I just hope I remember those lessons when it comes to my kids.
You will. Dude, those are hard times as a parent where you're like, I know the easy thing to do here, but like you're saying now, it's like putting that merit badge on, like, well, this is why I'm doing it. It's going to be a better lesson in the future. It'll make them a better person. It'll suck now and it'll be better for everybody in the end. And you just have to take those punches. And then same thing with
and I sucked at bowling, so I don't know why. I didn't know why we did that.
Struck out, pun intended.
My dad just destroyed me. Good for him.
Oh my God,
I didn't because he was like, "Well, you want to go bowl? No bumpers. Let's do this."
Yeah.
And every ball went in the gutter. He's like, "Is this a lot more fun?" Yeah.
Like, no, I'm losing. This sucks. I hate losing. Like, I literally hate it, but I love it and embrace it at the same time because I've learned so much from so many losses. And I've never had like real major losses aside from some like just really screwy business deals and partners and like those losses. And I've learned a lot from that. But again, I've like always gone, or I've just made losses in the things that I've been interested in and just don't really think of them as a loss more than a education point of like, okay, well, you lost this skate competition or you didn't win it. Maybe you didn't lose it, but you didn't win it. But like, all right, I'm going to be better from it.
Yeah.
So I can't even recall losses in that regard of hobbies. Just the big.
That's one thing I've noticed as I've thought back on things, as we kind of prepare for podcasts or just, through we talking and bringing up memories of childhood and whatever else. It's like, I guess I'm very fortunate that I like don't dwell on anything that's really bad. Cause it's like, you just move on. Dude. There's no benefit to the dwelling short of learning a lesson from something.
If you can understand what happened and learn.
But otherwise, if you're like, well, like tell me something bad that happened as a kid, I'd be like, I don't know.
No idea.
What I mean, I'm very fortunate we never had any like tragedies or something like that kind of left that impression, But just as it relates to like, well, I didn't get this
toy
thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I couldn't tell you.
Couldn't go into any details.
My parents couldn't have done it better, in my opinion. Like, and my mom's like, I feel like I was just the worst. I'm like, really?
I mean, she might have corrupted the way you eat food, but
that is a problem. John's working on that.
We're gonna eventually. I still think we need to have the Beav eats a salad challenge.
You know what? Here's what's interesting. Relentless Mama, one of the girls that post a lot of stuff with us. Jordan, if you're watching, hello. Your post stuck with me as I saw it this morning on Instagram stories where she was introducing some more solid foods to her twins. And she said she's starting with vegetables only first. And she's not going to give them like really anything super good and tasty until after they're comfortable with the vegetables. She's like, because if I give them like meats and this and stuff now, they're less likely to eat the vegetables and stuff after the fact. So she's like, and there were some studies done. So I don't know anything about that.
That's interesting.
But it's like start with the veggies and the boring stuff and get them used to that, and then give them some better stuff beyond that. That's like more exciting to eat.
I haven't thought about that. It was like, here's what we're eating.
To the steak.
Yes. Well, we just were like, like these are the things that are on our plate. Here's them cut up, sized appropriate for the kid. But so we got an air fryer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we put green beans in it. Surprisingly, very tasty.
I've heard people just like go like rave about air fryers. Like
I wasn't a believer.
Very skeptical.
We put chicken in there and it actually looked like it was fried. I know. Like,
I was like, I don't understand.
We did shrimp in it too, and it was like, I'm starting to become a believer.
That's crazy.
Because so to that point, so my kids thankfully have a pretty diverse palate. Just because if they complain that they want a peanut butter and jelly for dinner, they're just going to go hungry because we're not having peanut butter and jelly for dinner. But I've never seen my kid hammered a plate of green beans out of the air fryer like they were French fries. He literally had a handful because he was trying to keep them away from his brother who was trying to steal them, and he was shoving them into his mouth. And
I can't wait.
We literally were like,
fight,
"What?"
Like legit.
Oh,
when they're a little older.
They do. Max just comes up from behind him and just
starts
to try to choke him out.
I'm going to set up a mini cage and we're going to do a video. It's going to be
a little octagon.
We'll get my buddy Joe Rogan to come here and be the commentator.
Joe who's listening to our podcast.
We ate dinner with Joe. Well, not with Joe. Let's explain this one real quick. We always refer to him as our buddy Joe Rogan. We were at the UFC fights. Oh, congratulations to Stipe for the win 2 weekends ago. Stipe is a TBG user. If you guys aren't familiar with who Stipe Miocic is, he is the UFC 4-time now world at least 4. I think he was the 3-time before. Anyways, heavyweight champion of the world, baddest man alive. Like he had won, I think he defended it 3 times, lost once to DC, and then just beat DC again. So I think he's on his 4th win of the UFC heavyweight championship. Anyways, he's a TBG user. He's a bad dude. And right before the birth of his first child, they invited us to the fights. His wife was like, "Why don't you guys come out to the fights for the big fight against DC?" We're like, "What? Heck
Absolutely.
Yeah!" So, so we're out there at the fights. I was trying to remember where I was going with the story. Sorry. So we're out there at the fights, and after the fight, he lost. He got knocked out. It was like a lucky hit from DC, but it was a good fight. And those are 2 of the nicest, badass fighters in the world. Like they're the guys that'll just murder you, but they're like the nicest dudes in the world.
Afterwards, like, oh, high five.
Yeah, like, good job. Yeah. Anyways, super great guys. And so we're going out to dinner, and we're standing in line at the steak place. And then here comes...
Of course, we're standing in line.
We're standing in line. And
waiting.
they just like... Joe Rogan just kind of walks in and walks right past us. And we have brought a couple friends out with us. And one of them, Jansen, I hope you're listening, is like, "Wait, that was Joe Rogan." And we were like, "Yeah, it was." And he was with Dominic Cruz, one of the other UFC fighters. And I think he fought that night, or maybe he was commentating or whatever. But a couple other UFC fighters with him and Joe Rogan. They walk in, they sit down, they're eating dinner. And they're like around the corner from where we're eating. And
in the VIP section.
In the little VIP section. After this crazy fight had just happened. And everyone was like, couldn't believe what was going on. And then our waitress, who was super funny, and she was super cool. And Jansen's like freaking out about Joe Rogan. And it was hilarious. And she's like, "Just go back there and talk to him. Like, he's right there. Like, people go back there all the time. Yeah. Like, just
go say hi."
So we walk around the corner and go to talk to him. And he was in like a very deep conversation and like this awkwardly positioned table in the room. And they were like closing down the restaurants very late. We didn't get there till like 11 p.m. And so we didn't get to talk to him. But so for the rest of the trip, we were like, "Oh, we hung out with our buddy Joe Rogan, ate dinner with our buddy Joe Rogan." That was the joke, I think, back to his wife. That was like, "Oh, we just ate dinner with Joe Rogan." Anyways, so I always refer to him as our buddy Joe Rogan out of like a weird inside joke now. But we should have our buddy Joe Rogan judge the fight with your kids in the house in the mini octagon.
Man, seriously, the Max, who's the one who's older by 2 minutes, he'll just like run up behind Nico and just like literally like choke him out like he's some like ninja spy, and he's trying to put him in a sleeper hold so he doesn't scream to alert the other guards. You know, it's like so funny. He just comes up and then just barrels him down to the ground. And then Nico will get away, and I know a lot of parents can relate. And then you're like, he'll start to kind of like whine, but he's fine. And then he'll go up and like punch him in the face. And you're like, and then he'll cry when Max comes and tackles him again. I'm like, dude, you like, the fight was over. you went and instigated it. Yeah. Guess what's gonna happen? Max is gonna come tackle you.
He's just gonna always.
And then meanwhile, the little one's finally been witnessing this now. So like, when the little ones are like, we're reading a story to go to bed, he'll just come up and like pop him on the head, and he'll be like, "No," you know, like the older boys will try to like go after him. Like, "Nope, sorry." Like that's when like I'll come in and referee it, and I'm like, he just got a free hit, but you know, it's like he just punched one below the belt, but I kind of let it slide because I'm like, you're always beating up on the little ones. So
funny.
I can't wait for the littlest one to be bigger than him and just
dominate.
It's gonna be interesting. But yeah, we'll get a little mini octagon going. But
Christoph heavyweight champ.
They just. It's going to be interesting. Obviously, 3 boys, so it's like they're really starting to move into that roughhousing stage, and that balance between who's going to like actually hurt themselves and where is this just kind of good for them to wrestle. And so I've been trying to instigate like, here's the rules: no below the belt, but they don't necessarily understand that concept, thankfully. But then I'm like, no face, because like Max will come up to you and try to stick his thumbs in your eyeballs. Oh. I'm like, dude, like again, you're not a spy, like trying to like board some ship where you need to like take out some guards, man. Just like push them,
right?
But so we're into that stage. So I'm trying to come up with the rules, like the Fight Club rules in the house of like, hey, y'all can fight, you know, roughhouse. We don't leave marks on each other's faces. We don't do eyeballs, and we don't hit below the belt.
I remember when we got older, we got into probably that 10 years old plus. we used to put on boxing gloves. Mark Hodgson was like my best friend from childhood. He's probably listening to this. I'm going to have him on the show. It's just going to be amazing stories. But he used to come over because he lived like right across the street. We would, on the screen porch, we'd set up some like, I don't know, remember how we set it up, but we put some, I don't know if we took couch cushions or what we did, but we would all just go out there and start boxing each other. So
pounding each other in the face?
with boxing gloves and just like go at it. Mark likes to fight. It wasn't my favorite activity we did together as kids.
Well, that's because your older brother used to just wail on you.
God, you know what? It was more him and Travis, who's the younger brother. It was like Matt and Travis all the time, and I was kind of always out of it. Like those two were just at each other's throats constantly.
I didn't fight I've got an older brother. He and I didn't fight that much. Like, I mean, the traditional kind of like, I'm in that chair, you're in that chair, and we want to.
You know what? I just realized that I never really actually put together. You're a middle child.
Yeah,
we're both. I've never really. I think about like your brother and your sister, but I never think about the age difference ever. Maybe that's why we're so awesome. It's a middle child thing.
That clearly. He and I didn't really fight too much. I lost my mom, but. I don't really recall. Like, my dad was telling me stories because he's like 8 and 5 years younger than his older brothers, and they used to like sit on until he turned purple and passed out. And then my dad eats really fast, which I've picked up on because they would try to So there was a story.
You eat fast.
I know. But like I think it's from he eats really fast, and it's because growing up he had to scarf his food because they'd take his food. So there was this one time like someone was trying to take his food and he had a fork and just boom jammed it down and it like stuck and it was like wiggling and everything else. They had that real cutlery back in the day, you know,
none of this plasticware crap.
But yeah, so anyways, I never had to fight for food. But yeah, he was telling me stories like, back in my day, they used to sit on me until I passed out.
Jeez.
Like, hopefully my kids won't learn that trait. But
yeah,
they're rough-assing, and they need to go back to school.
Yes.
And then hopefully not rough-ass at school.
Talking about food's making me hungry. It is lunchtime. It is time.
We'll wrap it up
so
we can go eat.
But yeah, the dynamic of parenting and learning the kind of the fine line of like how much to let them lose, when to let them win, to incentivize them to do more things without just handing it out. Very interesting conversation to be had. Very interesting dynamic to learn and pick up on. And I would love to continue that conversation at some point in the future. I think it'd be good.
We can do it.
Cool. Guys, thanks for listening. Make sure that you like the video on YouTube if this is where you're watching it. If you're listening to it on your favorite podcast platform, make sure you leave a review, rating, comment. We would appreciate it. And we'll see you in the next episode. Peace.